She transported an elderly man to the hospital as a courtesy, unaware that his grandson, a CEO, would later return to seek her out. Rain lashed against the windshield with relentless intensity, while the wind shrieked through the treacherous mountain curves, seemingly cautioning any intrepid traveler. Mia clenched the steering wheel, straining to see through the haze. Her antiquated delivery van groaned with each turn, its headlights scarcely penetrating the dense shroud of darkness and rain. She was fatigued, drenched, and famished after an arduous day of deliveries for the bakery where she was employed. However, she was nearly home. Subsequently, she observed it. A burst of sparkles, a subtle luminescence. Her eyes widened as she turned the corner and observed a vehicle overturned on its side, perilously close to the guardrail. Smoke ascended in a slender, ominous column into the tempestuous sky, and one of the headlights flashed weakly like the final gasp of an expiring firefly. Mia's heart raced. She applied the brakes abruptly. Her tires slipped marginally. Nevertheless, she maneuvered the van to a halt and exited abruptly, slamming the door shut. Frigid rain pelted her face, thoroughly saturating her jacket, jeans, and shoes. Nevertheless, she sprinted towards the mangled vehicle. "Greetings," she shouted above the tumult of the tempest. "Can you hear me? Is anyone present?" A faint groan responded, muted yet genuine. She knelt beside the shattered passenger side glass and observed him. An elderly man sprawled over the seat, blood streaming from his brow. His chest rose and fell with faint, sluggish breaths. A seat belt restrained him. "Oh my goodness," Mia exhaled. "Wait, I will extricate you." His eyes opened slightly, clouded by agony and bewilderment. "Do not permit me to perish here," he gasped, scarcely discernible amidst the rain and his waning vigor. Mia's voice quivered yet remained resolute. "You will not perish. Not this evening. I have you covered. Simply trust me." The door remained immovable. She attempted once, twice, then cried out in exasperation. Upon examining the ground, she discovered a substantial metal rod, likely originating from the wreckage. Exerting all her effort, she forced it between the door and the frame, utilizing every muscle in her body. "Nothing." She shouted once more, this time with greater intensity, then retreated and shattered the driver's side window with the rod. Shards of glass cascaded, lacerating her hand, yet she disregarded the agony. She reached in, struggled with the seat belt, and after what seemed like an eternity, it became unfastened. The odor of gasoline assailed her as she simultaneously perceived the subtle crackling. No! A spark ignited beneath the mangled hood. The smoke intensified. Mia's heart raced into her throat. With power derived from terror and determination, she secured her arms behind the man's shoulders and pulled him backward away from the vehicle. "Hurry, hurry," she gasped, slipping and sliding in the mire. They had only traversed 10 feet when the vehicle detonated behind them with a thunderous explosion. Flames illuminating the hills in a haunting orange glow. Debris was propelled into the atmosphere. The heat scorched her back. She protected the man's body with her own. As the tinnitus subsided, she was left with only her labored breaths and his feeble voice. "You saved me. However, you are not yet out of danger," she stated, her chest heaving. "Remain with me, please." She hurried back to her van, opened the rear, and retrieved the substantial picnic blanket she utilized during intermissions. She secured it firmly around him, applying pressure to the gushing wound on his head, and thereafter assisted him into the passenger seat. Mia entered the driver's seat, inserted the key, and said, "Please do not malfunction now." The engine sputtered, then erupted into operation. She navigated the descent of the mountain amidst torrential rain, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. She accelerated to the maximum speed she deemed safe. Harold, as he had said, oscillated between states of consciousness. She continued conversing with him incessantly, mile after mile, minute after minute. "Excellent work, Harold. Only a short distance further. Remain with me." The emergency room sign illuminated through the tempest like a beacon of hope. Mia veered into the drop-off lane and honked the horn until personnel hurried outside. "Trauma emergency," she exclaimed. Male, in his late 70s, sustained a head injury with potential internal bleeding following a vehicular accident. Medical personnel encircled the van, extricating Harold and transferring him onto a stretcher. Mia recoiled, drenched, soiled, hemorrhaging, and quaking. A nurse addressed her. "Are you related?" "No," she replied. "Merely an individual who discovered him." "What name should be used for the report?" She paused, then declined with a shake of her head. "It is inconsequential. Merely rescue him." Without awaiting a reply, she pivoted and strode back into the downpour. The door of her van creaked, closed behind her. As she departed, the headlights engulfed her silhouette. She refrained from looking back. She did not anticipate encountering him again. She never anticipated that anyone would seek her out. Within the emergency area, staff swiftly transported Harold through the double doors, announcing his vital signs. Physicians issued commands. Mia stood at the precipice, drenched and quaking, her garments adhering to her flesh, her bleeding hands trembling from cold and adrenaline. A nurse advanced. "Madam, we require your name for the report." Mia negated with a shake of her head. "I am not a relative." "Nevertheless, simply save him," she stated gently yet resolutely. The nurse paused briefly before acquiescing. "We will do every effort possible." Mia offered a subtle smile before averting her gaze. She exited silently past the front desk and returned to the rain. Her van awaited, emitting steam in the night. She entered and sat, her forehead against the wheel, breathing heavily, her heart racing, yet a semblance of tranquility emerged within her chest. She acted appropriately. The journey home was devoid of sound. Her hand pulsated due to the lacerations. The collision continued to smolder in her vision. She subsequently cleaned the wounds. At this moment, she desired to vanish. Upon returning to her residence, the atmosphere was humid and frigid. She donned dry attire, flopped onto her bed, and gazed at the ceiling. No one would ever ascertain her actions. No journalists would attend. No one at the bakery would inquire. She would arrive the following morning as usual. Mia, the reserved delivery lady, diligently worked, spoke minimally, and generously provided additional donuts to the homeless man on 3rd and Main. She required no acknowledgement. She merely needed to accept that the man had existed. That night, she dreamt of flames and a voice imploring, "Do not allow me to perish here." She awoke before dawn, her heart burdened, and proceeded to work. By 6 o'clock, she arrived to the bakery, sleeves pulled up, her bandaged hand concealed beneath a glove. No inquiries were made. She remained silent. The earth continued to rotate. That afternoon, she traversed the bend where the incident occurred. The vehicle had vanished, the thoroughfare immaculate. Absence of smoke, absence of debris, merely tranquility and foliage. Life resumed its cadence. Early starts, subdued deliveries, extended nights. Occasionally, Mia's thoughts reverted to him. The man, his anxiety, his grasp, the unspoken communication in his gaze. She wished for his survival. She did not return to the hospital. Not contacted. Certain actions she perceived as intended to remain unspoken. For Mia, kindness was never intended for recognition. It was a decision she made and subsequently abandoned. Unbeknownst to her, a search had commenced in a distant high-rise office. A guy resolute in his quest to locate the girl who vanished into the tempest, emboldened by courage and pursued by flames. The initial sight that greeted Harold Carter upon opening his eyes was the clean white ceiling of a hospital room. The second was the subtle haze of an N4 line in his arm, and the third was a nurse hovering over him, beaming with tender relief. "You are awake, Mr. Carter," she stated gently. "You are exceptionally fortunate." He blinked languidly, then endeavored to rise. Agony throbbed in his ribs and along his flank. His cranium pulsated with pain. His final recollection was a dazzling brightness, the scent of smoke, and her presence. "Is the girl present?" "Where is she?" he inquired hoarsely. The nurse appeared perplexed. "Who?" "The girl. The one who rescued me. She was present, with young brown hair. She rescued me." The nurse's demeanor softened. "Sir, you arrived alone. You were deposited in the emergency bay and left before we could ascertain her name." Harold shut his eyes, yet tears accumulated behind his eyelids. "She did not await gratitude." "She may have preserved your life," the nurse interjected softly. "No," he whispered. "She saved more than that." 3 days later, Ryan Carter disembarked from his private flight into a frigid, overcast morning. His phone incessantly vibrated with emails, meeting notifications, and inquiries from investors, yet he disregarded them all. He had a singular objective. The communication from the hospital had been succinct but distressing. His grandfather had endured a nearly fatal accident, with the driver remaining unidentified. However, what resonated most with him was the voicemail Harold had left. Shortly after regaining consciousness, she rescued me from the flames. Ryan, an unfamiliar individual, did not inquire about my identity or concern herself with my wealth. She merely risked her life. I am indebted to her entirely. Harold Carter was not prone to dramatization. He was astute, resolute, and seldom emotional. However, Ryan discerned a tremor in his voice, indicating profound disturbance. "You must locate her," Harold had insisted. "You must express my gratitude to her on behalf of us." Ryan had never encountered his grandfather sounding so vulnerable, yet so resolute. Thus, he proceeded. He proceeded directly to the hospital. The physicians provided a comprehensive assessment. Harold had incurred a concussion, 2 fractured ribs, and minor internal hemorrhaging, yet was recuperating satisfactorily. The accident occurred on a secluded mountain road outside a small town 2 hours away. The emergency room personnel attempted to identify the woman who transported him, but she departed without disclosing her name. "Is there no security footage?" Ryan inquired, exasperated. The receptionist responded with a negative gesture. "She arrived during a late-night rainstorm. Our external cameras sustained damage last month. However, she transported him here," he insisted. "There must be some evidence." A nurse reported observing a blue delivery van. The receptionist contributed. The antiquated model was dented on the side. It marked the beginning. Ryan dedicated the subsequent day to analyzing traffic cameras from adjacent roads. With assistance from his security team, he scrutinized grainy footage until they identified it, a damaged blue van entering the hospital parking lot. The license plate was scarcely discernible, yet sufficient to refine their search. They identified its origin as a bakery in a quaint town. Upon entering the establishment the following morning, Ryan was unexpectedly enveloped by the aroma of freshly baked bread and cinnamon, reminiscent of a distant memory. The shop exuded a modest warmth, featuring aged wooden counters and handwritten signage. A bell chimed upon his arrival. Behind the counter, a young woman with compassionate eyes and weary shoulders was wiping her hands on a flower-adorned apron. He required a moment to identify her from the indistinct footage, yet certainty prevailed. She glanced up, somewhat taken aback by his presence. "Hello, may I assist you?" Ryan advanced a step, his heart inexplicably unsteady. "I am searching for someone," he articulated cautiously. "A woman who transported my grandfather to the hospital following a collision late one night." A blue van. The vehicle detonated. Her complexion drained marginally, lips separating in astonishment, yet she remained silent. "His name is Harold Carter," he persisted. "He was on the brink of death." He added, "A woman extricated him, jeopardizing her own life, and preserved his. He has been inquiring about her continuously since then." There remains no response, although her eyes displayed a hint of emotion. Recognition, possibly emotion. "Was it you?" Ryan inquired gently. Mia averted her gaze, nervously adjusting her apron. "I did not do it for gratitude. I am not here to express gratitude," he stated. "I am here because my grandfather, who has endured war, loss, and business conflicts beyond the imagination of most, conveyed that you did not merely preserve his life. You salvaged his heart." Mia swallowed with difficulty. "He informed me," Ryan said, his voice steady yet subdued, "that he had not experienced such human kindness in years. You reminded him of what is truly significant. He wishes to meet you, not as an obligation or an act of charity, but simply as a guy expressing gratitude." Silence enveloped the bakery, interrupted solely by the drone of an antiquated refrigerator and the gentle buzz of the neon open sign in the window. Mia muttered, "I was unaware of his name." "You are aware of it now," Ryan responded. "And he recognizes that yours is significant." This marked the inception of an undefined connection, yet both were cognizant of its significance. Some rescues inflict wounds, while others cultivate growth. Ryan Carter was accustomed to uncovering solutions in commerce, negotiations, and corporate crises. He took pride in precision and control. However, this situation was distinct. He was pursuing an apparition that his steadfast grandfather, Harold Carter, claimed transformed his existence. Not through wealth, nor through power, but via an act so altruistic and profoundly human that it left an indelible impression. She rescued me from a burning vehicle, Ryan, Harold had recounted, his voice still hoarse from injury, yet imbued with reverence. She did not inquire about my name. She merely rescued me and departed. Consequently, Ryan could not overlook this. Not when he observed the expression of his grandfather gazing out the window, contemplative and introspective, with a rare and fragile emotion flickering in his eyes. Thus, Ryan retraced his steps. Initially, he acquired footage from the traffic cameras adjacent to the hospital, which was grainy and antiquated. The majority was destroyed by the storm. However, a 2-second clip depicted a blue van entering the emergency entrance. It was an older model, dented on the left side, lacking any visible company name or license plate. He paused the video and zoomed in on the driver through the blurred windshield, revealing a faint outline of a young woman's face, resolute and drenched from the rain. That was sufficient. He investigated every bakery, florist, and courier service in the neighboring towns that utilized a comparable vehicle. Most inquiries yielded no results. Some vans had been disposed of, while others remained operational but were assigned to different routes. Ultimately, a promising lead emerged from a modest bakery named Sweet Pine, located in a tranquil town approximately an hour from the city. The owner informed Ryan via telephone that they possess a blue van, which is assigned to one of their delivery personnel. When questioned by the owner, Ryan remained silent, entered his vehicle, and departed. The bakery, modest and unpretentious, featured ivy adorning its exterior, accompanied by the enticing aromas of cinnamon and freshly baked bread. Within, wooden tables and gentle melodies contributed to the establishment's inviting, rustic allure. A bell resonated as he opened the door. Behind the counter, a woman with her back turned was humming to herself while wiping flour from her hands. Her braid cascaded down the back of her apron, and her sleeves were rolled up beyond her elbows. There was an ineffable quality to her posture and the subtle elegance of her movements that captivated him. "Mia," the shop owner summoned from the back room. "Could you assist the gentleman?" The woman turned, revealing herself clearly, no longer obscured by smoke and tempest. The visage from the movie, the countenance Harold had recounted in his semi-conscious mumbling. Her gaze locked with Ryan's as she advanced, tentative yet kind. "Hello, welcome. How may I assist you?" He opened his mouth, although the question seemed more burdensome than anticipated. "Do you operate the blue van parked outside?" he inquired. She blinked, taken aback. Yes. For deliveries." "What?" He hesitated once more, then approached her, lowering his voice sufficiently to remain unheard by others. "Did you rescue an elderly man from a burning vehicle approximately 2 weeks ago in the rain on a mountain road?" She froze, her hands paused on the countertop, her gaze directed at the floor, her breath caught in her throat. She began, then swallowed. "How did you acquire that information?" Ryan inquired, exhaling. "That man is my grandfather, Harold Carter." Mia's head jerked forward. "Is he alive?" she inquired, her voice quivering. "Yes. Due to you?" She gazed at him, a tempest of emotions flickering in her eyes. Relief, disbelief, fear, and perhaps guilt. "I doubted he would survive," she said. "He was profoundly injured. I fulfilled my obligations, and then you departed." She averted her gaze. It was not concerned with visibility. Ryan advanced farther, modulating his voice to a lower volume. "He discusses you daily. He is unaware of your name. Merely refers to you as the girl who salvaged my soul." Mia emitted a gentle, surprised laugh. "I believe he may be overrating my abilities." Ryan said that he believes he is fully aware of his statements. Given all he has witnessed in his life, I have never heard him articulate sentiments about anyone in this manner. For a brief interval, neither party uttered a word. Mia gazed at her flour-dusted hands before returning her attention to Ryan. "I did not intend to assume the role of a hero. I could not pass by without taking action." Ryan acquiesced with a deliberate nod. "That is precisely why you are one." She gazed at him for an extended duration, scrutinizing him as if uncertain how to interpret the individual before her. He was not attired in fashionable outfits nor accompanied by an entourage, only a man with sincerity in his words and a raw intensity in his gaze. "Did you truly travel this distance to locate me?" "I had no choice," he replied succinctly. Not due to my identity, but as a result of your actions. For the first time since she rescued Harold from the conflagration, Mia sensed a change in her heart. Not from trepidation, not from exhaustion, but from an unfamiliar and profound warmth. One individual had observed, and another had arrived. Subsequently, that afternoon, Ryan re-entered the bakery. Neither with cameras, not with reporters, nor even with a present, but a discreet request. Would you join me for dinner? He inquired, positioned outside Mia's delivery vehicle as she loaded the final box for the evening. She regarded him with slightly wrinkled brows. Why? He inquired, shrugging slightly. I wish to converse. To hear. Truly. She paused. His attire was unadorned, although he was anything but commonplace. She searched for him on Google immediately after he departed from the bakery earlier that day. Ryan Carter, CEO of Carter Global Holdings, possesses a net worth in the hundreds of millions. The type of man suited for magazine covers, rather than worn sidewalks with a female in a flower-adorned apron. However, there was an authenticity in his gaze that was modest. She nodded once. Understood. They convened at a secluded diner located across town. Not the type featuring pressed linens or fine glassware, but one characterized by cracked red booths and pie warmers at the cash. Mia appreciated that. She requested a grilled cheese sandwich with soup. Ryan ordered black coffee and a turkey sandwich. Initially, their conversation was fragmented. Meteorological labor. Subsequently, the more profound currents emerged. Mia stated that she lost her mother at the age of 8, while tracing her finger down the lip of her glass. Oncology. My father did not survive for an extended period thereafter. He departed and vanished. I oscillated between foster families and group shelters, mastering the art of remaining inconspicuous and enduring. Ryan refrained from interrupting. I commenced employment at the age of 15. Dishwashing, delivery, and other tasks. Occasionally, someone exhibited kindness. Yet, predominantly, it was merely myself. She cast a fleeting look at him. That evening, I located your grandfather. In all honesty, I did not perceive anyone in need of assistance, and I felt compelled to remain with him. Ryan's voice was gentle. Your assistance was not merely helpful, it was life-saving. I do not desire monetary compensation, she interjected swiftly, preempting his offer. Or acknowledgement. I do not require a scholarship, a new vehicle, or any of the typical offerings from individuals like you. He elevated a hand delicately. I had no intention of providing any of that. Mia closed and opened her eyes rapidly. Ryan inquired about the identity of the individual who rescued the father who reared him. That is all. Momentarily, she was at a loss for words. No individual had ever regarded her in such a manner previously, neither with appreciation nor with subdued thankfulness. She was frequently perceived as a transient, expendable individual. However, this individual perceived something beyond. The following day, Mia was kneading dough when the bell above the bakery entrance chimed. She pivoted, anticipating a patron, and became immobilized. Harold Carter was standing there. He appeared more emaciated than she recalled, pallid from convalescence, supported by a cane, yet his eyes were vibrant and glistening when they met hers. Harold stated, his voice coarse yet resolute, that he informed him of his necessity to arrive. I required one final glimpse of your visage. Mia wiped her hands on her apron, astonished. Are you well? I exist, he stated. Thank you. He advanced gently and, upon reaching the counter, extended his hand towards hers. She accepted it cautiously, awed by the warmth of his hold. I am unfamiliar with your narrative, Harold stated, his voice trembling. However, I am aware of your actions on my behalf. You entered a conflagration for an unfamiliar individual. I shall always remember that. His eyes brimmed with tears. I have experienced a lengthy existence. Established enterprises, forfeited friendships, and reared a tenacious grandson. He offered a slight smile to Ryan. However, no one has ever rescued me as you have. The room had become silent. Customers and staff observed as the formidable Harold Carter suppressed tears in the presence of a bakery employee. Mia had constriction in her throat. I did not undertake this for this purpose. I had no expectations. That is precisely why it is significant, Harold murmured. Ryan approached his granddad and rested a hand on his shoulder. She is the reason I remain your grandson, he stated gently. and she merits the acknowledgement of her belonging, irrespective of her origin. Mia glanced between them, her heart tumultuous. She had resided in the peripheries of society for so long, believing her benevolent actions would dissipate into obscurity. However, today, her kindness resonated, and for the first time, someone had traced that resonance back to her. The subsequent days were replete with unforeseen moments for Mia. Ryan increasingly frequented the bakery, not clad in suits or arriving in chauffeured vehicles, but rather in jeans and with sleeves rolled up. Initially, she perceived it as mere coincidence, then as a gesture of politeness. However, his tendency to linger, inquire about her van, and offer assistance with deliveries indicated otherwise, and he never presented it as an act of charity. One morning, he observed the front left tire of her van was almost worn out as she loaded a tray of muffins. "You could easily skid in the rain," he remarked. "I know," Mia replied. "I'm just trying to make it last another week or two." The following day, he returned with a replacement tire, neither new nor extravagant, but a reliable and robust tire that he personally purchased, delivered, and installed. I viewed a tutorial in which he remarked that when she gazed at him, perplexed, he admonished her not to regard him as powerless without a boardroom. Subsequently, the deliveries commenced. He began accompanying her, asserting it was an escape from the corporate spectacle. However, Mia was aware of the truth. He absorbed every detail. Her nostalgia for her mother while baking apple pies and her penchant for collecting vintage postcards from thrift shops, as she enjoyed envisioning lives she had never experienced. She continued to traverse the same park path every Sunday afternoon, despite her inability to articulate the reason. He never mocked or disregarded her. Instead, he listened with an uncommon attentiveness that made her feel singularly valued. One Thursday morning, during a customary delivery downtown, Mia observed an elderly woman huddled beneath a bridge, frail, drenched, and trembling, wrapped in garbage bags, her eyes swollen and skin mottled from the cold. "Remain here," Mia instructed Ryan, as she retrieved an additional loaf of bread and a bottle of warm tea from the passenger seat. "Mia," he commenced, "I shall be swift." She hurried over, knelt, and presented the sustenance with tender words and gentle hands. The woman recoiled initially, then succumbed to tears. Ryan observed from the van. No cameras, no accolades, merely unadulterated, silent humanity. At that moment, observing Mia crouched beside an unfamiliar individual in the cold, offering solace with the same gentleness she had shown his grandfather, something transformed within him. He had encountered women in heels who sought attention, women who communicated through assertive gestures and rehearsed smiles. However, Mia navigated the world with understated bravery, possessing a strength that required no proclamation. Later that evening, as the sun descended behind a line of ivy-covered buildings, Ryan and Mia occupied a seat outside the bakery, sipping tepid tea from paper cups. "Do you consistently engage in that?" he said. "What should I do?" "Assist everyone in that manner," she remarked with a shrug. "I understand the experience of feeling unnoticed, enduring cold, hunger, and fear." He remained silent for a minute, nodding. "You render the world more gentle," he remarked at last. Mia regarded him with astonishment. "You do not merely observe individuals," he elaborated. "You perceive their suffering and, in some manner, bear it without allowing it to consume you." She smiled softly. "That is not a common statement," she remarked. "I am not like most individuals," Ryan responded, maintaining eye contact. "I also believe you are not." A warm and unexpected sensation throbbed in her chest and his. They refrained from physical contact or affection, as love occasionally manifests without grand gestures. Occasionally, it manifests quietly amidst afternoons adorned with blossoms, in exchanged gazes over paper teacups, and in the steadfast manner someone regards you as though you are being perceived for the first time in your existence. The tempest did not commence with thunder. It emerged discreetly with a solitary image disseminated online. Mia exited the bakery, adorned with a flower on her apron, while Ryan held the door open alongside her. An indistinct image, however sufficient. Sufficient to initiate the rumors, the hysteria, the digital conflagration. Unidentified female who rescued the granddad of a millionaire heir. From bakeries to corporate offices, who is she truly? utilizing intimate relationships to achieve advancement. Mia's tranquil existence disintegrated within hours. Journalists stationed outside the bakery, pressing cameras against the window. The paparazzi trailed her delivery wagon, shouting inquiries to which she had no responses. Online commentators scrutinized her photographs, delving into her history, her upbringing in the foster care system, and her neglected high school blog. The headlines became more somber. A lamentable history or an advantageous one. Naive angel or strategic ascendant. She ceased her internet activity. However, the bakery staff felt compelled to reveal the most unfavorable aspects to her, believing she required this knowledge. One piece alleged that she fabricated the narrative, asserting that Harold Carter had already contacted emergency services and that she was only the first to arrive at the scene. It devastated her. One evening, after serving a plate of scones, she sat in her truck in a grocery store parking lot and wept until her chest ached. The benevolence she had offered unreservedly was now wielded against her. The tranquility she had discovered was obliterated. She did not respond to Ryan's calls. She was unable to, not due of her animosity towards him, but because she could not endure the prospect of being the cause for his name being sullied in tabloids. She was not a Carter. She did not align with his preferences. Consequently, she resolved to depart. One luggage, a one-way ticket to a town 3 states distant, and a letter affixed to the bakery refrigerator. I appreciate all that you have done. Kindly inform Ryan that I extend my apologies. Mia did not board the bus. Consequently, the following morning, her name appeared on every screen nationwide. However, this instance is not attributable to a defamation effort. This time, it was due to Ryan Carter ceasing to run. He stood solitary on a press conference stage before numerous cameras, hundreds of journalists, and millions of viewers at home. He donned neither a tie nor armor, only truth. I have remained silent for an adequate duration, he stated into the microphone. I will no longer allow quiet to shield cruelty. Camera flashes illuminated the scene. Journalists inquired attentively. Her name is Mia Dawson, Ryan stated. She preserved my grandfather's life when no one else would. She extricated him from her ablaze vehicle. She jeopardized her own life without soliciting any recompense. She did not desire monetary compensation. She sought to avoid notice. He halted. Now, because to my concern for her, you are treating her as if she has perpetrated an offense. A communal silence ensued. I will not permit that to persist. Cameras captured images. The audience awaited. She does not need to be part of my universe, Ryan asserted, his voice resolute and his gaze piercing. Because I opt to reside in hers. Gasps reverberated across the room. He asserted that she is not an opportunist. She is the most altruistic, empathetic, and genuine individual I have ever encountered, and I take pride in loving her. For one instant, the world became motionless. Subsequently, the applause ensued. Not from all, but sufficient. Sufficient to alter the outcome. By dusk, the pieces had altered in tone. Headlines have been moderated. The magnate and the pâtissier. Affection transcending news narratives. Perhaps we misjudged her. While Mia was seated in a motel room situated miles from town, her phone rang once more. She grasped it with quivering hands. What prompted you to do that? She inquired as Ryan's voice resonated. For love surpasses deceit, he stated. For the first time in days, she permitted herself to believe. Perhaps it was. The garden behind Harold Carter's rural residence was never intended to accommodate a wedding. It was formerly merely a verdant area beyond a stone patio, bordered by wild ivy and several gnarled rose bushes that flowered at their discretion. However, a year had elapsed since a girl adorned with blossoms on her cheeks and passion in her spirit entered their lives. Now, behind the gentle canopy of shimmering lights and drifting paper lanterns, it had transformed into hallowed ground. The chairs were incongruous, obtained from neighbors. The altar was meticulously crafted by Harold, who insisted on undertaking the task despite his niece's objections. The bride donned neither a fashionable gown nor an extravagant veil. Instead, she wore a flowing ivory garment discovered in an antique shop, meticulously changed by hand, embodying the care that arises from an appreciation of her origins. Mia positioned herself beneath the arch, her hair elegantly brushed back and adorned with fresh jasmine. Her hands quivered slightly when she grasped the bouquet of wildflowers that Ryan had personally gathered that morning. He he asserted, chuckling. The finest flowers are not transported by trucks. Ryan faced her, attired in a light gray suit, understated and classic. His gaze remained fixed on her, reflecting the same reverence he had felt the day she rescued his grandfather from a blazing wreckage. The attendees were a small group of close friends, bakery personnel, and a dozen acquaintances who had evolved into family via the collaborative efforts of Mia and Ryan. A tiny girl, no older than 5, sat near the front row, her legs swinging beneath her seat, while a flower crown slipped over her curls. She grasped a teddy bear and gazed upward with big eyes, embodying astonishment. Her name was Elsie. She was discovered about 8 months ago, abandoned, injured, and afraid following a vehicular accident on a secluded stretch of road. Mia visited the hospital as part of her work with the newly established Road Light Foundation, an initiative she co-founded to assist traffic accident victims in remote regions. Mia had remained beside the young child for hours, narrating stories, drying her tears, and ultimately singing her to slumber. The adoption was unanticipated. However, Mia had discovered that love seldom follows a plan. As the ceremony commenced, Elsie extricated herself from her chair and sprinted toward the altar. Ryan crouched promptly to seize her in his embrace. "Father," she said, grasping his collar. "Are you now marrying Mother?" He chuckled softly, kissing her forehead. "That is precisely what I am doing." The audience chuckled softly as he transferred her into Mia's embrace. For a brief moment, the bride and groom stood together, cradling the child who had completed the intricate tapestry of their improbable yet incredible love. The officiant cleared his throat softly. "Shall we commence?" Their pledges were uncomplicated. Mia, her voice unwavering despite the tears glistening in her eyes, stated, "You discovered me when I was unaware of my own worth. You perceived beyond superficial narratives and trepidation. You recognized me and never relinquished your hold." Ryan, his voice strained with emotion, responded, "You demonstrated a form of strength that is neither cultivated in corporate environments nor imparted in educational institutions. You loved selflessly. I now wish to dedicate the remainder of my life to deserving that gift." They embraced as the attendees applauded, cheered, and even wept. Harold brushed a tear from his eye, his cane positioned beside him. As the couple faced the audience, hand in hand, with Elsie joyfully skipping between them, Harold leaned toward his sister and murmured, "He discovered her." She glanced over. "Whom did you discover?" "My angel," he stated. "The one who rescued me from the flames. The individual who restored significance to my life. She has now become his angel as well." Later that evening, the garden radiated with golden light as the sun descended below the horizon. Tables were adorned with home-cooked dishes. Guests danced to melodies emanating from an antiquated speaker. Children pursued bubbles. Amidst it all, Mia twirled barefoot on the grass, grasping Elsie's hands and spinning her in circles. Ryan paused momentarily, observing them, his daughters. He reflected on their journey from a devastating accident on a rain-soaked mountain road to this evening, where laughter permeated the air like something sacred. Mia met his eyes and approached, her cheeks flushed and breathless from dancing. She rested her head on his chest and said, "I never imagined this could be my life." He embraced her more tightly. "That's because the world deceived you. It led you to believe that you were unworthy of happiness. You have always been deserving of this." Harold grinned from afar, lifting his glass toward them. To Mia, he murmured quietly to himself, "The woman who rescued me subsequently rescued him." As nightfall intensified and stars began to dominate the sky, the Carter Garden transformed into something everlasting. Not by means of wealth or heritage, but through love, forged in fire, tested by adversity, and repeatedly selected in silence, chaos, and ultimately in tranquility. Under the ancient oak tree, the girl who had previously disappeared into the night without an identity was now a wife, mother, and co-founder of a mission that touched hearts far beyond the incident that initiated it all. Where smoke and debris formerly prevailed, light now illuminated the scene. Where survival had previously prevailed, family now existed. We appreciate your participation in this profoundly impactful journey of courage, empathy, and unforeseen affection. She transported an elderly guy to the hospital as a courtesy, unaware of his grandchild. A CEO, would return to locate her. It reminds us that even the most minor acts of kindness can initiate significant transformations, not just in the lives we influence, but also within our own hearts. Mia demonstrated that heroism is frequently understated, altruistic, and grounded in love, transitioning from the tumultuous roadside to a radiant garden. Ryan demonstrated that selecting individuals based on their character rather than their origins might provide remarkable outcomes. If this narrative resonated with you, elicited joy, or evoked a sense of the remaining benevolence in the world, we encourage you to become part of our expanding community of hearts and tales. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for additional narratives that heal, inspire, and linger long after the screen darkens. Your forthcoming preferred narrative awaits. Let us proceed there jointly.